Welcome to the Power Platform Show. Thanks for joining me today. I hope today's guest inspires and educates you on the possibilities of the Microsoft Power Platform. Now, let's get on with the show. In this episode, like everything on the Power Platform show, we're going to be focusing on the Power Platform and particularly an implementation in the United Kingdom. Today's guest is from the UK. She is a low-code product manager and consultant at Defra, which we'll find out what that's all about shortly. She's creative and energetic leader focusing on technology that can create positive change in the world. You can find links to her bio, social media, etc. in the show notes for this episode. Welcome to the show, Emma.
Thanks, Mark. It's really nice to be here.
Great to have you on the show. I always like to start with like a little getting to know you segment, which is so people can see you outside of your tech role and outside of the discussions we'll have about the Power Platform. So tell me about food, family, and fun.
So I'm going to start with family because I've just returned to work from my second adoption leave. So I've got two gorgeous little girls who are almost 2 and 6. So they keep me very busy. And I always say, give me great stakeholder management skills. Also, I live with the love of my life, which is my dog, who helps keep me active and just brings so much joy to my life, as I'm sure any dog owners would agree. And then finally, there's my husband, who always gets mentioned last. And fun, I mean, mostly lots of socialising with my friends. So love going out for live music, going to music festivals. We were just chatting about Dynamics Minds before this, and you mentioned the sort of festival feel. So I feel like that should be next on my list.
Yes.
I also really like keeping fit and active, find that helps keep me sane. So I'm an early gym bunny before the kids get up, and I love trail running with the dog, and I practice Iyengar yoga as well, which helps keep me calm amongst all the chaos, especially in this technology area where everything's always moving so fast and it can get quite stressful.
Yes.
And then on to food. Well, I'm a bit of a kind of split personality when it comes to food. So I'm very much a chocoholic. So I was in heaven this year at the European Power Platform Conference because that was in Belgium. So I spent a bit of time between sessions working my way around the chocolate shops and the praline shops, which was great. But on the flip side of that addiction, I'm also quite interested in nutrition. I follow mostly a plant-based diet aside from all the chocolate. And I'm really interested in all the kind of new research around the gut microbiome and the impact it has on kind of whole body health. So trying to weave that into my family's lives as well. So yeah, a bit of a mixed split personality kind of person really across the board.
This is so interesting, as in, I don't want to derail where we're going to go, but I've been heavily invested in this space for the last, probably this year, particularly around the gut microbiome, as you say. And the biggest impact that I have added to my diet is Celtic salt.
Celtic salt?
Yeah. And this is a salt that's extracted that has, I think it's got 82 minerals in it. It's not bleached. It's not done it's basically extracted, put in the bag, and it's a damp salt, so it absorbs moisture. It's not dried out. It's got no added anything. And it came from the study of farmers. I was brought up on a dairy farm, and we used to always put what was called a lick block out for the stock. And this was a big block, and all it was minerals. And the cows, that wouldn't get the minerals necessary from the grass they were eating would lick this block. And whenever you were going to sell the cows at market and fatten them up for sale, you would take the lick block away from the paddock. And what would happen is with about 11 days, the cows would start to overeat. So they would eat excessive amounts trying to get the minerals that they needed for their body. And of course, they would put on weight really quickly. And so, I don't know, 3 months ago, I started taking it I started at about 1/4 of a teaspoon. I'm now up to 1/2 a teaspoon every time I drop it into a glass of water. And I'll do that 2, sometimes 3 times a day. And hunger cravings gone.
Oh, that is so fascinating. Do you think it could fix my chocolate cravings?
Well,
maybe
not
not.
all cravings need fixing,
That's
right?
true.
Not all cravings need fixing. And you know, I think I've just about dropped 15 kgs in the last.
Wow.
What was that? Probably this year, definitely. And as you're talking about chocolate and stuff, I'm actually on a detox right now, and my detox means water only, and I am on day 5 of water only.
No food
fast.
at all.
No food at all.
Oh my God. That just makes me feel panicked inside. I don't know how you're doing that.
Here's the crazy thing though, as in, because you mentioned yoga, which triggered me to say this, is that because I got a lot of lower back pain about 2 days into the fast, and they say that it's probably a magnesium or potassium deficiency, and your muscles start, a lot of toxins are stored in the lower part of your back that you've accumulated over years, and so as they release it, it's uncomfortable. It's extremely uncomfortable. Like I cannot sleep because it's so uncomfortable. And so yeah, having the salt again in the water has definitely been helpful for that. But I have not felt hungry once at all. I haven't felt like, I should be eating, and nothing at all. And so my goal is to do 7 days. So I've got 2 days to go.
Oh my gosh, madness.
And I just know it'll be a no-brainer. I'll be able to achieve it. But yeah, I've been doing intermittent fasting all this year, pretty much. So that means I eat an 8-hour window and 16 hours, nothing apart from water.
I'm going to send you a link to a book after we've chatted. I saw this lady talking about the gut microbiome at the Abergavenny Food Festival a couple of weekends ago. And one of the ladies had a whole chapter about fasting in her book, and she was talking about the pros and cons. So you should have a little read. See what you think.
I will.
Although, I mean, I'm still very impressed because I can't imagine it. And I'm going to look up the Celtic salt.
Yeah. And what about the other one is, have you looked into apple cider vinegar?
I haven't, but I've heard lots about it. I've been going for the 30 whole foods and fruit and veg a week. Nice.
So I've got into growing all my own veg.
Yeah, that's amazing. Good for you.
Yeah. And it's just so, I don't know, there's something so awesome when you can take your kids out to the garden and they're wanting to pull up the carrots and eat them right there. You're just washing them and they're eating them straight away. And the fresh peas, they're just popping the pods open and they're eating them. And
best way to eat them.
They really like the, straight from the garden. And so my goal is on my property is to grow every type of fruit. So every month there's an abundance of fruit for that month, whatever the season is. So yeah, I recently just planted like 12 orange trees, all different varieties.
Amazing.
And
that's so cool.
It is so fun when you start to really become mindful about what you eat rather than just the, I heard a stat, something like 80% of all food that is sold in the supermarket didn't exist 70 years ago.
Wow. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Like it's all made up processed food that just didn't exist 70 years ago.
You're so ready for the apocalypse then, Mark. You can go 7 days without food. You got all the food you need when you are ready to eat.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes. The one thing I haven't got is I haven't got chickens. So one day I'll get chickens so I can get my egg supply.
Yeah.
Because I do think that eggs are a good protein source. But then I've got like around me, I think about 10 beaches, which allow me to fish as well. So, but I haven't developed a fishing habit yet. Anyhow, we digress.
We'll come back to fishing though.
Yeah. Tell me about Defra.
So Defra stands for the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. So it's a central government department in the UK. So as a central government department, it's very much the kind of policy arm of government. So we set the rules and regulations around food farming and agriculture. And then underneath us, we've got a whole bunch of arm's length bodies, but there's 5 particular arm's length bodies, which are the largest ones essentially, that sit underneath Defra and have the same IT department essentially. So in my role, I'm not just looking purely at Defra, I'm also looking at the 5 arm's length bodies underneath. So it's about 37,000 employees across those different organisations.
Incredible. And so When you say the policies, does this go into the area of ESG and sustainability?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So different parts of that, yeah, they fall across different different arm's length bodies, but yeah, it does cover all of that. Yeah. So under our, actually, I'm not going to list them off because I'll definitely forget one and then I'll be struggling to remember it. But we'll talk about a few of them when we talk about some of the apps we've been doing.
Yeah, awesome. And so then tell me about how you first came across the Power Platform.
Let's take a quick break.
Are you ready to transform your career in just 90 days? Join me on the 90-Day Mentoring Challenge and unlock your full potential. As I listen to the podcast, enroll now and get 10% off using the code MBAP. That's MBAP at the checkout. Don't miss this opportunity to learn from industry leaders and accelerate your growth. Visit ako.nz365guy.com and start your journey today.
Well, first came across it in my previous role in Defra. So, I mean, I've always been a bit of a geek, got the internet early. My mum worked in IT and spent my teens on MSN Messenger. Then went to uni, studied what I was good at the time, which was English and the thing I was interested in. And I had this idea that I wanted to work in advertising, had a kind of Mad Men type image of working in advertising. But then the agency I ended up working at kind of brought those two parts of my life together. So we dealt mostly with B2B technology marketing. So Microsoft were one of our clients, Toshiba, EMC, and it was at that time when everything was about the cloud. So the early noughties, everything we were doing was about the cloud. And then did a little sidestep into working as a mobile strategy consultant around the dawn of the first iPhone. So the guy I'd been working for started a new company, developing enterprise mobile applications, and then sort of dabbled with creating our own off-the-shelf kind of forms-based applications. So that was kind of my first interest in that sort of concept, I suppose, of low code, of being able to kind of spin up apps without having to sit writing all of the code for it, which with some of those enterprise mobile apps that we were building at the beginning there, they were big projects and there was a lot to do, and particularly like the integration was getting really, really messy. So then I kind of got tired of working on some of the apps, some of the clients we were working with, and started to look around for my next opportunity and saw this role at Defra working as a tech innovation consultant, which kind of brought together two parts of my life, really, that the technology side, the geekery side, the consultancy side that I've been developing in that work in the mobile technology area, and the environment, which is something that I've always been interested in. So that role was really about looking at new technology that Defra might be able to use to better achieve its goals. And in that role, I focused on mobile tech, but also focused on our 365 rollout, which was in its infancy. So my role on that program of work was essentially looking at the 365 product and looking at all the stuff coming along the roadmap that we might want to use and how we might want to use it. So matching the kind of business requirements that we had against the tech that was there. And so I heard about this thing called Power Apps in that job, and it called me back to my forms-based mobile app days. Could see some examples of things we might be able to use it for in Defra. So both from that kind of citizen dev side and from our kind of IT project delivery side. So we ran a proof of concept from both sides. So some guys in our fleet team had a go at building their own apps for essentially keeping a log of our fleet vehicles, making that so people in our who have those fleet vehicles could easily go and see what the status was and that kind of thing. It was a very straightforward one. And then we had a look at an IT project which had recently fallen over in its delivery for our port inspectors. So guys out there having a look to see if they, essentially inspecting shipping containers. There's so many interesting things that our arm's length bodies do. Honestly, Mark, the breadth of the things that we do is just crazy. So these port inspectors, they work at some of the biggest ports in the UK, and their job is spot checking shipping containers to make sure people aren't shipping out illegal waste or things that have been stolen, which sometimes is the case. Yes. So sometimes they'll find a sports car packed behind loads of rubbish to hide it on its way out. But often what they find is just loads of waste that should have been recycled being shipped out of the country. So they were working with a clipboard and paper in the rain in a port. So we built them a Power App to do it instead. Both of those proof of concepts were really successful. Everybody thought they were great. They did exactly what they needed to do. So I made some recommendations on the next steps. So my job in that consultancy role was to say, shall we do it? And the answer was yes. And I made some recommendations around getting some strategy around it, perhaps bringing someone in to lead it. And then 3 years later, my job came up because that's how long it takes in government to get people to change.
Yes.
And yeah, I've now been doing the job for 3 years and I absolutely love it. It's been very challenging. And I think particularly from where we started from in terms of our adoption, there weren't that many organisations we could copy in terms of what they were doing. Yeah. So it's been challenging and busy, but it's such an interesting technology area. And I think especially for government, it's just made such a huge impact for us in such a short period of time. And I can't imagine any other technology doing the same thing. So you asked me how I came across it. You've had the whole story now.
It's awesome. It's awesome. So a couple of things I want to unpack. You talked about 365, and I assume you're talking about Microsoft 365 rather than Dynamics 365.
I am talking about Microsoft 365, but I always still want to say Office 365, even though it's been Microsoft 365 for so long.
Totally. No, that's cool. Interesting around that app around the shipping containers. I've been involved in building one for all the ports in Australia for shipping, which was around incoming containers to track the evidence collection for illegal contraband coming in the shipping containers. And we first built the app for all air cargo coming into the country, and then we moved on to shipping containers. And so I assume they have these at the port, but they would have X-ray machines that can X-ray a full container at a time, right? And the way people would hide stuff was just mind-blowing.
It's mad, isn't it?
Like false floors in the containers and, double-lined walls packed with tobacco. Tobacco is still a massive kind of, to get around the tariffs and things associated with it. Steroids, all sorts of things, of course, and of course all the drugs and stuff that would be shipped in that way as well. So it was... I love that part of the job where it's such intriguing field-related stuff. And then, you take a clipboard process, and that's what I call them. And I found in the early days of the Power Platform that clipboard processes were the easiest low-hanging fruit to digitize, right? And you got so many more benefits with a clipboard process in that you got now the authenticated user, right? So you knew who it was. You got the timestamp of when it was done. And if you had GPS enabled, you got a very clear where was it done. And all that telemetry data can really inform how things change, And in my mind, I was thinking of Virgin Atlantic while I was in the UK was doing this as well for flight crew and stuff. And it just adds a whole level of rigor to any type of checklist type processes. Another one that came to mind I was involved in was, when you walk onto the aircraft through the air bridge, well, all of those need inspecting. And that used to be a paper-based process. It was always independent inspector. It would take ages to do. Photos needed to be captured, recommendations, repairs, compliance things. And moving that to digital just sped everything up. You could have an inspection done and a work order created on the same day, which that used to be like 6 weeks later after the inspection was done. So it definitely changes things a lot.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned that one because we did something similar for DHL, which is a logistics company in the UK for their part of their delivery process. And it, like in the mobile application developer that I was working for, and thinking back now, that development probably took 6 to 9 months and cost them, probably over £100,000 to have that app delivered.
Yeah.
But now you could build something like that in, I don't know, probably a week and a half.
Yeah. Crazy, right?
Using the platform or a similar product. So yeah, it is crazy. We've come such a long way. It's really exciting.
So on the Power Platform, across the various things that you've built, are you using the full suite? Like, do you use Power BI? Do you use Power Automate, Power Apps, Power Pages? Are you using any of the AI type tooling that's available? And I'm talking about the AI tooling that was pre-Copilot, so AI Builder, for example. How broad is your implementation?
So we've got apps, automate, and BI. All three very heavily in use. So I can go into some of the stats around that in a sec. But Copilot, no. AI Builder, no. And Power Pages, no, not yet. So Power Pages falls down on some of the standards that we have in the government digital service for delivering public-facing websites. So at the moment, our developers won't go near it.
As in, what standard does it fall down? Is it like a usability standards?
So it's not usability standards. It's to do with development languages. I'd have to go back through my email and see what their problem with it was. But we have revisited it recently, and it was a hard no that I got. But I know that some other government departments are using it.
See, around the world, massive amount of government departments are using it. In New Zealand, we've just launched a company, a 4-year project, and all our passport processing application, 100% online, all through Power Pages. So that's for 5 million citizens, and plus all visa applications, all done through Power Pages.
Wow. Yeah, I'm sure it's something that we will revisit, but for now, we're not going near it.
Interesting. Just on the Pages side, have you discussed it with Microsoft directly?
Good question. To go back and try and recall from 6 months ago.
Because that is something that they would really proactively want to engage with.
Yeah.
Around, particularly that you're a government agency, and therefore you're probably representative of every government agency in the UK. And it's about getting that level of engagement in Microsoft that could really tell you where it was on the roadmap to address if it's not going to be addressed at all. And so therefore really, rather than just doing the self-discovery, I think sometimes it's good to have, like I had a situation where I needed to get a data sovereignty issue sorted out. And this is 8 years ago, so a long time ago when it wasn't as transparent as what it is now. But ultimately, I had the CTO of Microsoft engage with the CTO of the organization I was working for, and there was a legal agreement drawn around that the data would never leave. In this case, the Australian data centers would never move across to, let's say, Singapore, or Hong Kong, or any of the other kind of data center locations at all. But they'll do that type of one-to-one type engagement with
that's
you.
A good shout. I think that's a good idea. Yeah, I'll get the right people together our side and give them a shout. No, we do get gold standard service off Microsoft, don't worry.
Yeah, very good, very good. So it's interesting you say you can't get the governance around AI Builder, because AI Builder it's totally different than Copilot, right? So it's in a different world in that it's the what I'd call the old school machine learning real way of doing AI rather than generative AI. And so therefore the governance is a lot more robust, I suppose, than what you get with generative at the moment.
Although something else you should know about Defra, Mark, is that our data is not in great shape. Not in great shape at all. We're working on it. And, there's lots of projects where we're working to tidy it up and sort it out and, get an awful lot of it into Dataverse now.
Nice.
But, those clipboard processes, we've still got some. We've still got loads of, hundreds of PDF forms that the public have to download off Gov.uk and fill out and post into us. It is madness. It
is madness.
But, we've got so much to do and hardly any money to do it with. So, and that's, not that every project on the Power Platform is cheap, but just having an agreed architecture and an agreed approach for how we now approach these problems is transformational for us. Yeah.
Tell us about your stats. What stats have you got?
So I mentioned how many users we've got. So we've got 37,000 users. So to date, we've now got about 60 IT-delivered apps sitting on Power Apps. So obviously some of those are part of, one enterprise solution. But yeah, about 60.
Yes.
And then we've got over 200 now citizen-developed apps that are in regular use. So the citizen-developed side is huge. And we're seeing over the last year, 200% growth in the number of apps on the tenancy, and about 350% growth in the number of flows. So Power Automate the growth in Power Automate has been massive this year.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so it's we're kind of a victim of our own success now because it's grown so quickly. So we've got a lot of challenges as well, but it's great how quickly the adoption is happening as well, because it is really solving a lot of big problems for us.
Yeah. So those automations, are they coming more from the citizen dev side of the organization or more from your...
It's a mix. It's a mix. I'd say if I was to make up a number based on what I think is happening, it's probably like 25% of them on the IT project side and 75 on the staff, citizen developers.
Have you looked at all, the Power Cat team within Microsoft released a tool called the Business Value Kit, and allows you to install it on your tenant, and it allows you to report on the ROI of every automation, every app that you have in your business. No,
I haven't seen this. So benefits is my biggest challenge, pulling together benefits. What value are we really delivering on? But I'm very intrigued as to how it does that, because we're trying to build something, or we have been trying to build something that does that for us.
So it does a bunch of things. It engages with the creator of the app or automation, and it will do a little survey questionnaire to them.
That's what I was going to do. That's what I'm building, Mark.
Yeah, there you go. So you might want to go and take a look at that.
I am going to.
Because what I've noticed in organizations is that one of the biggest problems they run into, as you talk about being a victim of your own success, is that you build some great stuff. And I was just talking with a company while I was in Vegas, and they've got 70,000 employees, and they have built, he showed me the apps on his phone, and I was like, man, these are amazing. Because I have a rule that if I look at an app and I can tell it's a Power App, you've failed. Right? The UX and UI, you've failed if I can tell it's a Power App. I couldn't tell. I had to ask him, are these Power Apps? He was like, yeah. I said, man, these are amazing. And I said, so your premium license, I take it right across the org? He goes, no, we don't have any. And he goes, the problem is the executives don't want to give me money because what we've done has been so successful that they're like, why do you need to pay for licensing as well? Like, this is amazing. And what I have found is that if you're going to keep going to executives to get budget to do something, they want to see numbers, right? They want to see. And why I think what Microsoft has done with releasing, or particularly the Power team, which is, the Power team or the Power Cat team is designed to help Microsoft's big customers with their adoption of the technology. So they're not paid. They're not about driving license sales, although that is ultimately perhaps a byproduct. So these kits that they put out are free and allow you to, and it was, once again, a request from customers to really understand what was the true value. It's fine to look at total economic impact reports that are done by Forrester and things like that, but that's those companies, right? People go, what is our company? What's the impact in our business? And so this gives you that. And you imagine if every month you could have a report that says, this has been the impact on the business that we have had. When you go to executives with those reports, all of a sudden they're like, it's a different conversation, right? Because you're proving the value you're generating.
Absolutely. And with Power Automate, you should be able to make that data really accurate, because you can say every time this flow runs, it's saved half an hour of someone's time. So you should be able to roll that data up. So I've got a bit of a competition internally, because we've got a team that look after, we have UiPath for desktop automation.
Yeah, everyone makes mistakes, right, from time to time.
They've got a Power BI dashboard that displays live data on how much time their robots are saving and how much money their robots are saving Defra. And they've been going for 3 years, so we're into the millions now of pounds, and they've just got it ticking over. And we've just, at the moment, all of our benefits are qualitative and not quantitative. And that's, we really need to start getting some harder cold hard numbers, especially, I don't know how much you're aware of the political situation in the UK at the moment. Our new government have found a big hole in our finances. So we've got a lot of pressure on central government now to do things cheaper and prove the value of every penny we're spending. And I know it's really valuable, but I need the numbers. So I'm definitely, that's my first job for tomorrow morning, Mark, to look into that. Thank you.
Check it out, because I think that if it becomes part of just the muscle of the organization to produce these reports, one, you're going to find a lot of success stories, because one of the things it does as well is captures the individual successes around it. So it gets them to go, hey, can you give us, give us your feedback. Tell us why you think this is amazing. And so you're getting all this constant, Bob said this, Susie said this, Frank said this. And so to go with that, as you say, qualitative data, having that, though, the story that it can tell with it as well, I think it's a very smart bit of tooling to have, on your tenant.
Get my hopes up. I hope it lives up to the dream.
Well, you can tell me. You can tell me. I'd love to see how it goes. And by the way, it is only 4 weeks old, so it is brand new. Okay,
yeah, I'm surprised no one in my team is aware of it, because we go to the monthly meetings on the toolkit, the PowerCat meetings. So I'm surprised it's not come up. So
yeah, I'm surprised, because it was where I came across it was LinkedIn, and the individual in the PowerCat team published it on LinkedIn. And the funny thing is, when I traced it all the way through to get the download assets, which I just did maybe last week, it actually goes to a site for Ignite 2024, which is not till December.
Oh, okay.
And that's where it was published there. So they may be going to make a big song and dance in December about it, maybe, or November. I can't remember exactly when Ignite is. But it was funny that it was on the Ignite site is where these assets were. They weren't normally. In fact, if you go to the PowerCat website, you don't actually see it listed in one of the kits. So it is definitely fresh, and I've lined up to do a couple of podcasts with the creators of it.
Oh, great!
So yeah, to get more exposure. But I do think that it's going to become a powerful tool for organizations to really prove the value that they're creating in a way that executives won't argue with, right? Because it's based on your dollars and cents, that your organization, uses. So therefore, it would stand up with a CFO, for example. It wouldn't be fictitious numbers.
Yeah, absolutely.
The best app in your mind that you've been involved in and that you built or most proud of, what would that be? What was the workload it was addressing? What was it doing?
Well, so I don't actually get involved in the delivery of these apps. So my job is very much about managing the product, the governance around the product, and what everybody's doing. But I'll tell you about some of the interesting apps that we've been... I'll give you a couple of examples of some of the interesting things that we've been working on and things that feel like quite cool uses of it. So... one, I said I'd come back to fishing. So one of the first power apps that we went live with was for the Environment Agency. So that's one of those 5 arm's length bodies. So they're actually bigger than core Defra. It's about 10,000 people. Wow. And one of their responsibilities is around maintaining the health of our rivers. So anybody fishing in the rivers in England needs to have a rod license in order to do that. And we have inspectors out in the field who go out and go up to those people by the riverside and check that they've got a license. So previously, unfortunately, not even a clipboard process, because they'd need to have all that customer data on them. The process was that they would see if the person the angler has a license, and then call up our contact centre if they haven't got anything on them to check their details or check that it's still valid if the card's out of date or whatever. So their inspector would go away from the angler, call the contact centre, check up on the angler's details, and then go back to the angler, give them a fine if they need to. So really simple use case. We've now got moved that data into somewhere where we can ingest it properly. We've then got the Power app that the inspectors have out on the riverside, and they can quickly look on the app now by the river to see if the angler's license is up to date. So huge increase in efficiencies, only one person involved in that process now. The biggest challenge with that one, though, is the offline working. So we still haven't solved that one. But I think close to getting it sorted now. So sometimes they're out of signal, obviously, but So that one's been quite a good one for us. Another, I mean, this is probably the biggest one, or one of the biggest ones that we're delivering at the moment, or have just gone live with part of it, but it's going to be an ongoing project. So Natural England is another one of our arm's length bodies. So Natural England's responsible for protecting and restoring the natural environment. So they manage a number of licensing schemes around sustainable development. So like if you had a badger set in your garden and you wanted to extend your house over where that badger set was, you'd need a license to ensure that you were doing it with minimal harm. And historically, those were one of those lovely PDF paper-based processes. So you'd print your form off, you'd fill out your form, you'd post it into Natural England, and then someone in Natural England's office would take that data and punch it into essentially a citizen-developed solution, which would either be a spreadsheet or an Access database. So they were all very manual, very decentralized processes, and there's loads of these different sorts of licenses that people have, licensing schemes for different things, and they're all managed by different teams. So we'd have different customer databases in different Excel sheets and Access databases. And some of these spreadsheets and Access databases are keeping track of significant income streams. I mean, like into the millions of pounds for Natural England. So really been left by the wayside for far too long. So we've now got a large program of work delivering a Dataverse and model-driven app solution to take the place of these existing paper-based solutions. So they've started with some of the biggest ones, and then they'll be moving on to some of the smaller ones over time. So there's a huge runway now of licensing schemes to come on. So it's in the process of being launched with 3 of our development schemes, and then more those will be added over time. But essentially where the platform has been really beneficial for us there is it's made it really easy to consolidate that data and bring it into one place and drive efficiencies in that delivery. So that thing we were talking about earlier, I guess it's kind of cookie cutter now, because we know how we're going to do the case management and the customer management, and we can build things on top of it. So we've done the hard work, and we can now expand it. And I think that's going forward where the real sweet spot's going to be for Defra, because across core Defra and the 5 arm's length bodies, there's lots of use cases that are very similar. So we can do more reuse as we move on.
Brilliant. I see we're well over time. So we're going to need to wrap. It was interesting, as in the offline comment that you made, because, 8 years ago, I built a solution for main roads in Western Australia, and they're one state government, right, in WA. That one state, the geographic size of it is 11 times the size of the United Kingdom. So it's large bit of dirt, right? And we had to provide offline mode for all their road workers, so they'd go out and spec the roads with ArcGIS integration, and find defects in the roads where there was absolutely no mobile coverage for the entire day. And so, we solved that offline problem 8-9 years ago, and their road worker trucks, so they'd be able to go along the road. Because the mapping was in real time, they'd be able to point to an area and say, okay, this is a pothole, and then it would say, they'd basically draw how large it was, and then behind the scenes, it would automatically create a work order for that. And then when the truck went back to the depot at the end of the day, they would just drop their toughened devices in, and it would, join the network and sync all that data back into the platform at that point. So it should be a solvable problem for you, the offline access.
Yeah, I think there was just a lot of nervousness about all the customer data being on people's devices. But I'm sure...
Oh, so the device is fully locked down. So, you put BitLocker on, you make sure that they have the password even to run the operating system type thing. So fully, and like that encryption is, you won't be, it takes somebody 10 years to crack the encryption on that type of thing at minimum. So you're not going to lose the data anytime soon unless supercomputers come out, So I think you'll be pretty safe. Yeah. Anyhow, that's all I've got time for. Emma, it's been so good. It's been so easy to talk to you as well, which I've really enjoyed. Thank you for everything you've shared today.
Not at all. Really nice to meet you, Mark. And I'll see you hopefully in person next time.
Hey, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Business Application MVP Mark Smith, otherwise known as the NZ365 Guy. If there's a guest you'd like to see on the show, please message me on LinkedIn. If you want to be a supporter of the show, please check out buymeacoffee.com/NZ365guy. Stay safe out there and shoot for the stars.